Miyeon is an amazing light DPS who creates really big shields and can deal massive amounts of damage. This is because when you do give her her best artifact build, which is going to be utilizing the 8 set effects bonus of Chaotic Infamy, you can increase her basic skill and ultimate skill damage by 100%, so it will completely double it, which is amazing for her. And as well, you'll probably all know that when you use this set in teamfight mode, you can increase your damage again by another 40%, so when it comes to using her in Power of Destruction and Guild Boss, she'll be amazing with this set. Then when you look at her gameplay, you'll definitely realize that she does use a lot of basic skills, so with Chaotic Infamy allowing you to regain 5% of your mana points when you use a basic skill every 30 seconds, it's going to make this the perfect set for your Miyeon. Moving on then, we have all of your Miyeon's best main stats for her artifacts, and for her helmet, body armor, and also her ring, you'll want to go for additional defense. However, as always, defense percent can definitely be used. And with Miyeon being of the light element, when it comes to her other two important ones, for her bracelets, you'll definitely want to go for light damage percent, and then when it does come to her boots, you can either go for critical hit damage or you could go for defense percent, with, in my opinion, critical hit damage will be the better option. So following up from your best main stats with your artifacts, let's talk about your best artifact substats, and additional defense and defense percent are going to be the two most important substats you want to prioritize, as well as also your crit stats, with your crit rate getting that up to around 50% with some surplus for end game content where it does take away your crit rate, and then for crit damage you want to get around 200%. But finally, you'll want to go for any other damage increasing stats such as damage increase and then also defense penetration. Your Miyeon's best cores are up next, and her best ones are very easy for you to choose because when it comes to her mind piece, you'll want to go for the Nameless Demon's Deception, which does say when using your ultimate skill, the user's critical hit damage will increase by 20% for 8 seconds. And because Miyeon is a hunter who definitely does spam her ultimate a lot, it does mean that you can actually have a pretty high amount of uptime with this, so it's definitely her best in slots. The Nameless Demon's Horn then will also be her best in slot for the body piece because she likes to create a lot of shield, so with this also creating a 10% max HP shield for 8 seconds when you do cast your ultimate skill will also be very beneficial for her. And finally, like I said before, she does use a lot of basic skills, so using something like the Nameless Demon's Magisphere to help recover mana points equal to 5% of your maximum mana every 20 seconds when you use your ultimate skill really does just make it the perfect fit for her. So when it comes to all of the main stats for her cores then, you'll want to go for additional attack, defense, and HP because they'll give you the biggest stat increases. But for the substats, you'll always just want to go for whatever sort of damage increasing stat that you are missing from your artifacts, being either damage increase, critical hit damage, or defense penetration. Another extremely important part in how you make Miyeon amazing is going to be her advancements and finding her sweet spot. And in my opinion, because of how much it does improve her ultimate skill, I do think getting Miyeon all the way to A5 is definitely going to be her sweet spot if you do want to actually use her. But first of all, let's talk about her A1, which does come with a lot of really good quality of life with her kits, because when the user does enter the stage, you can charge her power gauge by 50%, so this makes getting her ultimate within your first rotation very easy. And also using her ultimate skill can now activate her core attack as well as restore 600 of her mana points. Her A2 then is actually really strong because it gives you a 15% increase into your light damage, so for an A2 it's actually pretty good. Miyeon's A3 is fantastic because when you use your first or second basic skill, you can grant the user a shield equal to 5% of Miyeon's max HP for 15 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. And when the shield effect is activated, the user's defense can increase by 6% for 30 seconds, so with her A3 and also her A0 combined, she can increase her defense by up to 90%. Her A4 then is not really anything too special because it only says really for every light ally that you do have, the defense of light team members does increase by 3%, so this is only really a total of a 9% increase, so really isn't the greatest thing in the world. However, you'll still take it. But of course, we then have her A5, which says when using her ultimate skill, she can increase her crit rate by 10% and her crit damage by 20% for 15 seconds. Following that up, she can then increase her power gauge by 3% and reduce her ultimate skill cooldown by 4.5 seconds when she does use either her first or second basic skill, which in theory should mean that she can get it every rotation. So next up, we have your Miyeon skill level priority, and her 3 best skills for you to level up are going to be her first and also second basic skill, and finally her core attack. This is because when we start to look at her first basic skill, you can increase the damage of the skill all the way up to 1788% of her defense's damage, which will of course increase the damage that she does with the skill, but even more so, it will increase the damage that the green mana power crystal will do because it deals damage equal to 250% of the skill's damage. This then also applies to her second basic skill because she can create a yellow mana power crystal, and finally her core attack can also create a crystal. However, it's a little bit different because you have to create it through her A0 hero buff called Highlight. And then as always, when it comes to the rest of her skills, you can just follow the recommended skill level up order that you can see in game, which will give you all of the other info that you do need. Onto your Miyon's exclusive weapon, which is the Battlefield's Guiding Star, and just like every weapon, it will have a stat increase of up to 12% defense, which is not too bad, but nothing really too crazy. But more importantly, the user's core attack will inflict an effect on enemies within a 20-meter range that does increase the enemy's damage taken from Miyeon by 30% for 30 seconds, with it then having a cooldown of 20 seconds, which doesn't really matter because as long as you can get it to A5, you'll be able to have 100% uptime with it. So this weapon is fantastic for Miyeon because she can get a 30% damage increase from it. Your Miyon's very best team is up next, and she definitely wants to be put into the Mono Light team, which does mean you'll want to use the likes of Gogenhe as your best breaker, as well as also Shimizu Akari as your best support for this team. And when it comes to formatting this team, you want it to look something like this, with your Akari acting just before your Miyeon, so then your Miyeon can make the most of your Akari's buffs and also debuffs, which is also why Shimizu Akari is so good with Miyeon in this team, because stuff like the Ring of Fire debuff that she does create can increase the light damage taken by enemies by 20%, lasting for 24 seconds, so you have a really high amount of uptime with it. But even more importantly, the Enhanced Brilliance buff increasing damage and also the crit rate of your basic and ultimate skills are also amazing. Gogenhe then doesn't really have any competition for being the best light breaker, because he can apply some really good buffs like Will of Brilliant Lights, which can increase all of your light team members' damage and crit damage by up to 24% for 20 seconds. And even that stuff like his A5 Will of the Fragment being able to increase your entire team's crit damage by 30% and then their QTE skill damage by 150% will help increase your Miyon's damage by a lot. Shadows are of course a very important part of building this team, and overall for the best authority leader, I would recommend going for something like Igris for his up to 8% increase into your critical hit rate. But as for the supportive shadows, you'll always want to go for Serbi the Cerberus for his combustion debuff, and then finally either you can go for Bessie for her defense penetration increase, or you could go for Beru for his punishment damage increase. So finally, let's talk about how to best use your Miyeon, and she's actually very sort of simple and easy to use, but it does take a lot of skill inputs, because once you bring her in after using your Akari and also your Gogenhe, applying all of their buffs and debuffs, you'll want to start her skill rotation off by using her first basic skill, because this can then actually activate her core attack, which will be the second skill that you then use, followed up by then your second basic skill to then trigger and also detonate all of the crystals that you have created. And then by this point, once you have completed that first set of the rotation, you'll be able to get your ultimate up, which will then be the next thing you can use, which will then allow you to completely reset your skill cooldowns and also reactivate your core attack. So then you can repeat the skill rotation again with you using your core attack first, so then you can then reactivate it again with your first basic skill back into your core attack, and then ending it off with your second basic skill again. So there you have it. Miyeon is an amazingly strong DPS who can do massive amounts of damage, and overall, if you did enjoy this video, or you just found it useful in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, I will see you all in the next video. Peace!